Adrian Montclair had always believed that success came at a price, and for years he thought he was willing to pay it, burying himself in boardrooms, contracts, and negotiations that stretched deep into the night while the city skyline outside his office windows glittered like a treasure chest he was determined to claim. But in the process he had allowed something far more precious to slip quietly through his fingers, the simple joy of being present in the lives of his two children, Daniel and Lily, who were still so young and so desperately in need of the kind of love only a father could give, though Adrian rarely saw it because grief had turned him into a machine after the death of his beloved wife, Eleanor, 3 years earlier, a death that had shattered him in ways money could never repair, leaving a hollow man who drowned his sorrow in relentless work, thinking if he could build higher towers of wealth and influence then maybe the emptiness inside him would not echo so loudly. And so each morning he left before dawn, returning home long after his children had fallen asleep, missing their school recitals, their birthdays, and even the small moments like bedtime stories or laughter over spilled milk at the dinner table, until one ordinary Tuesday, driven by a strange restlessness he could not name, he dismissed his driver early and told his secretary to cancel the afternoon meetings, claiming fatigue though in truth something deeper pulled him home. Some whisper of instinct or longing that had grown too loud to ignore, and when the iron gates of the Montclair estate opened before him and the tires of his sleek black sedan crunched against the gravel driveway, he felt a curious mixture of guilt and anticipation stir in his chest. Guilt because he realized he could not remember the last time he had walked through his own doors before sunset, anticipation because a faint, unfamiliar sound drifted from inside the house when he stepped through the grand entryway, a sound he had not heard in years, at least not with such unguarded brightness. So laughter, pure and unrestrained, not from television or recorded shows but from the throats of his own children, and drawn like a moth to flame he followed it, his polished shoes clicking softly against marble floors, his heart unexpectedly hammering, until he paused at the threshold of the family room and what he saw there made his breath catch and his carefully constructed walls of composure tremble, for his maid, Maria, whom he had hired nearly a year ago with little more thought than one gives to purchasing furniture, was crouched on the carpet with her long dark hair tied back in a loose braid and her apron smudged with flour, clearly from preparing lunch. And yet here she was leading his children in a grand adventure beneath a sprawling blanket fort they had built together, sheets draped over chairs and secured with clothespins, Daniel wearing a paper crown cut unevenly from cardboard while Lily clutched a teddy bear dressed in one of Eleanor's old scarves, and Maria wielded a wooden spoon like a scepter, declaring in a playful, regal tone that King Daniel and Princess Lily ruled over the mighty kingdom of Montclair Castle, to which the children erupted into gleeful shrieks and collapsed in laughter, rolling on the carpet with eyes sparkling in a way Adrian had not seen since before Eleanor's illness, and the sight struck him with such force that tears welled unexpectedly, burning against the edges of his vision, because it was in that moment he realized how starved his children had been for connection, how easily another could step into the space he had left vacant, and how profoundly Maria had filled it not with wealth or extravagance but with something he had forgotten the taste of: time, imagination, affectionate things that cost nothing and yet meant everything. And as he leaned silently against the doorframe, unnoticed for the moment, he thought of all the meetings he had chosen over bedtime kisses, all the deals that had stolen him from birthday candles, all the nights he had buried himself in spreadsheets while his children lay awake wishing for the sound of his voice, and the shame was almost unbearable, growing heavier still when Lily threw her arms around Maria's neck and exclaimed, "Maria, you're the best queen ever," while Daniel, with the blunt honesty of an 8-year-old, declared, "You're way better than Dad because you actually play with us," words that sliced through Adrian's chest like knives because they were not meant to be cruel but were simply the truth spoken from a child's heart, and though he wanted to turn away, to retreat to the sanctuary of his office where he could bury himself once again, he could not move, for his feet seemed rooted to the spot and his soul demanded he bear witness to the consequence of his neglect, until at last Lily looked up and spotted him, her little gasp breaking the spell as she cried, "Daddy!" and rushed into his arms, her small body pressing against him with a warmth he had not felt in so long it almost hurt, followed by Daniel, who hesitated only a moment before joining, though his embrace carried more reserve, as though he wasn't sure whether to trust this rare appearance, and behind them Maria stood quickly, flustered, smoothing her apron and stammering, "Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, we were just playing," as if she feared rebuke, but Adrian shook his head, unable to form words at first, then managed, voice thick with unshed tears, "No, Maria, don't apologize, please." He broken bar "Thank you," words that startled her, for she had seen him always as a distant, cold figure, never as a man with trembling hands and damp eyes, and in that instant something shifted in him as he allowed his children to tug at his sleeves, begging him to join their game, until to his own astonishment he dropped to his knees, crawled into the makeshift fort, and for the first time in years allowed himself to laugh, a real laughter that cracked open the grief-hardened shell around his heart, mingling with tears that rolled freely as he wore the paper crown his son placed on his head, waved the wooden spoon scepter, and declared himself their king, though deep inside he knew he was unworthy of such a title until he made amends for all the years stolen by ambition. And as the sunlight filtered through the thin sheets of the fort, casting the room in a warm golden glow, Adrian silently vowed never again to let work steal these moments, never again to trade the priceless love of his children for numbers on a screen, and he realized that perhaps Eleanor, watching from somewhere beyond, had orchestrated this homecoming, had placed Maria in their lives to remind him that family was not healed with wealth but with presence, and that it was not too late to become the father his children deserved, for though the world outside still clamored with deadlines and demands, within the fragile fortress of blankets and laughter a broken family had taken its first steps toward becoming whole again.